Hello, my name is Anjani, and today I'm reading the full moon astrology report for April 10th. The exact time of the full moon is 11:08 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And what I'm looking at for this full moon, we have Venus in retrograde. We have Mercury, who just went retrograde yesterday. And there's just a lot of really exciting aspects that we have going on with this full moon. So, starting off with a full moon being the time of a culmination of a certain type of energy. And let's start with looking at where the full moon is happening. So, the full moon is in Libra, and the sun is directly opposite the moon in the sign of Aries. So what makes this really unique is that the moon is at a very tight conjunction with Jupiter, and the sun is at a very tight conjunction with Uranus. Both of these outer planets are something that I think of as being they're exciting. Uranus, who's with the sun right now, is a sort of change agent, radical, unexpected, and very out of this world kind of changes. So they can be sudden changes. When Uranus is with the sun, which it will be for the next probably day or so, because the sun moves quite quickly and Uranus will be put there for a while. But the sun's going to be going near Uranus, so crossing there. So between now and let's say tomorrow at this about the same time, there is a potent activity in our just pulling the rug out from underneath you, or like having something happen that you just couldn't expect, and then where everything flies up in the air, like we don't know where things will land and what you're going to catch and what you're going to completely let go of. And think of this in the terms of the mind. Uranus is a very celestial, cosmic type of energy. So when I'm talking about Uranus, we can think about the planets in the sky, but really think about that part of you that likes change, the part of you that is radical and a little rebellious and has great ideas. So we have that aspecting the sun right now. And then let's look at the moon. Jupiter is like the part of you that is jovial, fun, expansive, likes evolution. So on both sides of this full moon, we have energy that wants evolution. It's all about expansion of consciousness and evolution of us, basically. So this full moon point, already a full moon point is a time of, I like to think of it physiologically with increased water, where cephalitis, you got water on the brain. And, if you look at news reports, like gathered research, they say that more things will happen on full moon nights that have to do with a little bit of insanity, lunatics, the moon, la luna, it all goes together. So, and I think also like when you get drugs and alcohol involved or anything that brings you into out of your body and out of your center, that's when the lunatic type things can happen. But if we're staying in our center and we're being clean and clear, the lunacy can be wonderful at a full moon point, and especially for what we're seeing here. How can I expand? Sometimes when Jupiter is so close with the moon, it is a time of travel. And if you're not traveling physically, being able to travel in the mind. With the emotions, doing shamanic journeys during this full moon would be amazing because of what I'm seeing here with Jupiter next to the moon. And then let's move here now, because here's Pluto. And if you've been following me for any amount of time, you know that I have an affinity for Pluto, whereas a lot of astrologers will have sort of a poo face when they talk about Pluto, because it's scary. Pluto is an underworld initiator. It has to do with death and rebirth, transformation cycles, being in a cocoon. Nobody wants to be in a cocoon, but everybody wants to be a beautiful butterfly. So I have an affinity for Pluto because I have a lot of Pluto on my chart. And I'm going to bring up some other charts more toward the end of this so you can see some samples of the way this beautiful aspect that we have, the way that this changes on individual charts. So here's Pluto right with Juno, and I'm not going to talk about Juno right now, but since you know about Pluto, that it has to do with transformation, it's big power. Look at the P. It's big power. This can be, okay, let's start here. So Pluto squared to the moon. And we'll get into the aspect with Jupiter in a minute, but Pluto squared the moon, just to begin with. I have this natally on my chart, so I can say this from experience. Pluto square the moon is, everything is dual, but it means one thing. In all of life, there is duality or poles, good, bad. There's always a duality, but for one thing. So with Pluto and the moon, what this duality is about is being powerless and being powerful. So it depends on, if you might hear this astrology reading from somebody else who's going to say that, tapping into all the ways that you are a victim, tapping into all the ways that you have victim mentality, that you can be abused and hurt, and even, everything that has to do with loss, destruction, death. Then on the other pole, the other end of that pole, we have Pluto as magnificent amount of power and vitality, the pure life force energy. You have both sides, and you get to choose. So in the beginning of my life, with a natal Pluto square the moon. So here's Pluto on my chart, and here's the moon. So this is me natally. The beginning of my life, I did have a lot of victim mentality. I was a little kid, and all these things were happening, and it was a complete loss of power. And then as I grew and developed, it became, instead of a loss of power, it was learning how to use my power and then becoming that power. There's an ancient native saying that says when a woman starts her menstrual cycle, she meets her power. When she is, during her menstrual cycle, she is practicing her power. And then when at menopause, when it ends, that's when a woman is her power. She is the culmination of wisdom. She becomes that. So it's like that throughout life. We're constantly, all of us, constantly in some sort of a cycle and some sort of initiation phase. In the ancient times, they actually had scheduled initiations, but now it's mixed in with life, with regular life. So when you meet somebody, you never know what they might be going through, everybody's having their own mini initiations, some more intense than others. So there's Pluto square the moon. For all of us right now, this could be emphasizing great loss of power, but the way I'm choosing to see this, and the reality that I'm grabbing hold of, is how can we own more of our power? And this is directly in relationship to your you might think about your mother, relationship with your mother, the relationship with your inner mother, the way that you mother yourself. And then with Pluto and Jupiter together, this really gets into your nutrition, the way that you're feeding yourself, the way that you are nurturing and taking care of your everyday patterns and routines. Because when I say mothering yourself, Jupiter is really into health and into wellness. So this is what's being emphasized for me right now. What I'm noticing is, how can I grab a hold more of my power from within myself, and directly in relationship to the way I am mothering and taking care of my own physical body, my health, my evolution and expansion. So then we take this square that's going this way with Pluto square to the Sun and Uranus. The first thing, I did get a little scared when I was looking at this in comparison with my own personal chart. I have to be honest, I had about 30 minutes where I was just thinking of all the possible changes unexpectedly that would be illuminating. So here's Uranus, which is bringing unexpected changes, and the Sun, which is all about illumination. The sun shines on everything. You cannot hide. If you're a vampire, you know that you have to be hidden in the dark when the sun comes out, because in all the movies anyway, the sun will seep through. It'll find a way to get through. There will always be a light. You know what I mean? The sun is coming. So this is what I was noticing, is that what do I have still hidden or underground beneath the surface of me that I don't want to come out? I took some time at the end of 2016 sort of telling my secrets publicly in some writing that I did. And I'll put a link down here at the end of this video if you want to read some of those writings that I've done. And everything that I thought was the most embarrassing things that I would never want people to know about me, I put it all out. So with this, I'm thinking like, wow, I know there's got to be something else that I don't want to have illuminated. So I just took some time and wrote out, what else, and what came up collectively for us doesn't necessarily have to be about secrets as much as it is about power. How are you still not able to fully own your power? So when Uranus and the Sun are together, the way it looked to me was like shining a light and giving us a chance. So this morning I had a talk with a client who was complaining and, was feeling crappy. And he even said, I'm so stupid. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have let this happen. I can't believe I waited this long. These were words that he was actually using. And I stopped him and was like, listen, all these events are showing you something that's deep within. How can you use what's happening in your life right now that's giving you this heavy feeling, whatever the feeling might be for you? You can just write it out, make a list. Those events are not important. Of course they may be, in, if it has to do with like your bills and your basic life line, things that you need to survive. But what's below that? Oh, I'm so stupid. Oh, I can't believe I did that. It's all my fault. Going to that layer and seeing what's there, seeing what is below the surface, because that is where the program is. That program is likely outdated and it's coming up to be revealed. So in your life, for the rest of the day, tomorrow, I like to use full moon energy for 3 days. So the day before, the day of, and the day after. You can focus on looking at little annoyances and things in your life that bring up emotion and feeling. And when I say bring up, because that's what Pluto does, it's something deep that you feel it welling up from, I'm pointing to my heart because that's where I'll feel things. It could be in your head, it could be in your lower belly, it could be in your hips, whatever it is, you'll feel something coming up, or you'll have a sense of it, you'll hear it. with Uranus involved with this aspect, it could also be, it just comes up. Like you didn't know, you weren't feeling it, you weren't thinking about it. It could just come up out of nowhere. My phone rang today and I was like, oh crap, what's this going to be? Really, we won't know. But meeting it head on. I'm here and I'm taking the calls and I'm doing the things. With the knowledge of, okay, how can I use what's happening to be more in my own power, evolve into more of who I am and less of who I'm not, because a lot of times we're overlaid with other people's expectations of who we are, and we don't even know how these programs get put into us, and we're just running on them. Oh, I'm so dumb, and oh, it's all my fault, and all the things that we're saying in our mind, it's not even real. It's old. So that's what we have here with Pluto squaring the sun, Pluto squaring the moon. And the last thing I'll mention here, well, that maybe I'll just mention Mercury. Oh gosh, there's so many things. Mercury is retrograde, went retrograde yesterday, but Mercury's just chilling out, Mercury's over here in Taurus, which is saying that to me, chill out, take a break, relax. Taurus, excuse me, Taurus likes to be receiving pleasure, open to receiving, being grounded, being, really in the earth. It's more about receiving the abundance of the earth with Taurus. So with Mercury there, that's what I felt. And I did a whole video about the beginning of the Mercury retrograde cycle and the end of the Mercury retrograde cycle and some ways to interact with that. So just have a peek at it today on the full moon. There's really nothing dynamic going on. We have an easy flow of energy between Mercury and Saturn, which, Saturn is the part of us that is the inner author, the authority of our life. So we could say that our structure, our foundation, home and work, sort of has an easy flow of energy going between Mercury, who is retrograde. Then down here, Chiron is at a very tight conjunction with the Venus retrograde. Venus, what I've been noticing is that I did a video for Venus retrograde, and I was like saying, well, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be recapping on love, and it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to meet the partner of your dreams during the Venus cycle, or that your exes are going to call you, or it doesn't necessarily mean that. It really is about the way that we interact with our own inner feminine and the way that we collectively are interacting with the feminine energy, not just women, and not just with, your own. It doesn't mean wearing makeup, and it doesn't mean that at all. It has more to do with the way that we are able to be accepting and loving of our own inner feminine. So, but what I've noticed is that I did have a lot of my exes calling me. I met so many new men who were interested in me and who I was also interested in. I did have a lot of romantic encounters as far as I didn't go anywhere. I got invited to go a lot of places, but I really didn't go. But there was a lot of, has been so far, a lot of romantic, things happening. So the way that I take it is going to be different than the way everybody takes it. But ultimately, the way that I see it from the chart is that Venus, who is still right next to Chiron, wants to expose vulnerability, wants to be accepted for everything that comes with the feminine energy, which in yoga, in the yogic writings, Shakti is what empowers consciousness. And Shakti is the feminine energy, Shiva being the pure consciousness. So I want us to get out of the mindset that feminine is just passive. Feminine is not just passive. Feminine energy, it's, what enlivens. It's what brings, the earth. When we saw all the flowers blooming, that's Shakti. That's the divine feminine, which is able to birth and bring to life. It's so much more than our limited perception of what the feminine has been. So that's what we have here, square to Saturn. So really looking at our structure, our form, and how can we be vulnerable in our feminine energy and still using that to create structure and form. Also, this is squares are friction points. So questioning the way that our forefathers, because Saturn represents the fathers, the government, the system, the basic foundation of whatever the system is, questioning the way that we have been believing or have been told that we are supposed to be feminine. So these are just some things that I see here. I hope you enjoyed the full moon reading. Please ask any questions. I have a program that is amazing. I mean, it's a really good program to get you in touch with your inner programming and to make changes to that from a really deep level. I'll put a link to that program. If you have any questions about that, I would love to talk to you about it. Also, really willing to work with the payments if that's an issue. I really just want to get this program out. So thank you so much. I look forward to connecting with you soon.